You need to ask the right question, and oftentimes it's not enough with one question, because one question might lead to five new questions, and then you need to answer those, right? So there is a back and forth reasoning that is happening, which is actually very interesting because that's how our brain works.
So we had the luxury to build two companies previous to this one that were successful. And I have to say, like, we are two people, but I believe that future, if you look at the future and if you look how many of these tools that we use are open source, so I've never ran a team bigger than I have now.
I would say probably half the work that's being done there in the corporate office could probably be done by some kind of automated agent like SuperAgent. It's just the facts of the matter. So, and that's probably like that through a lot of corporate America.
In some ways making life easier, but it's also eliminating that sort of autonomy in our lives that we're doing this sort of thing? Or do you look at it more as it's freeing people up to do more important tasks?
So my name is Ismail. I'm one of the co-founders of SuperAgent, one of two. I basically write all of the code and am the CTO of the company and basically the initiator together with Alan on the open source project that is SuperAgent, basically. So that's my background is I'm a chemist, weirdly enough, but never graduated, always been building companies, been building companies with Alan for the past, 12, 13 years. So we know each other pretty well. Been through everything you could be as founders, which is a strength, I guess. So that's my background, basically.
And yes, my name is Alan, and I'm the co-founder of SuperAgent together with Ismail, as mentioned. I have an engineering background, mechanical engineering, and we are from the city. We're based in Gothenburg, Sweden, which is the city of Volvo. So over here, like mechanical engineering is a big thing. So everyone works for Volvo here except me and Ismail. We always wanted to do something different. So we've always been into like cool and interesting technology,
Bleeding edge stuff.
bleeding edge.
Yeah.
Like we've always been into that, and I think our strength has always been like, how can we toy around with cool technology and create like something that is useful, right? And that I think is our niche. And oftentimes we end up in like very boring industries for some reason. I don't know. I think we're boring people deep down, so we gravitate towards that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we did like serverless deployments of like apps before like Vercel was a big thing. When they were like, a couple of developers. We were there like doing stuff in production. So yeah, we like the bleeding edge stuff.
Awesome.
That's very cool. So to get into SuperAgent a little bit, for people who don't know or anything about SuperAgent but are interested, what is the project?
Do you want to take this, Ismail?
No, I think you should take the part about why we are doing this, like what the whole thing is. For somebody who doesn't know what field we're in, like AI agents, I think it would be appropriate to just give a proper background to people who have no background. Yeah.
So basically, the idea behind agents within the field of AI is not something new, right? From the dawn of computing, like computing and AI was like invented at the same time, right? That's basically the history of computing. So, and the idea of agents dates back to that. And the whole idea is that you have some kind of program in this context that can act autonomously, right? Can understand its environment and can basically on its own solve different tasks, right? And reach different goals. So that's like the theoretical background which we are leaning on here, right? And what happened during the last year with this whole, transformer revolution that we're in the middle of, is that people started playing around with toys like ChatGPT and the underlying large language models, and realized that an LLM, or large language model, can actually serve excellently as like a reasoning engine for an agent, right? So if you imagine an agent having all of these different components, uh, like a brain, if you will, that it needs to perform a certain task, the LLM happened to perform excellently as like a reasoning engine. So people started creating different kind of hacks and different kind of demos based on this, and the results were very interesting, to say the least. Right? You've seen the demos; it's very promising. And Ismail and I were in the middle of building a product that's sort of related but also unrelated, and we started borrowing some ideas from the community, and we quickly realized that if we would to use an agent to solve like a software problem that we had, it had a lot of different benefits, right? Because we quickly realized that there is a paradigm shift going on. So the old way of building products, of building software, is basically the programmer has to embed knowledge into the product by programming. That's essentially what programming is. But the new way is that you outsource all of that to the large language model, because the large language model already has a bunch of knowledge embedded into it, right? Mm-hmm. So that was our aha moment. We saw that, okay, things are going to change pretty fast. Looking on, we started playing around building our own agents, and we quickly realized that, okay, all that existed out there was demos. There was no real way of building an agent that you could actually use in production. So that was kind of the starting point of SuperAgent.
So were you still sort of building SuperAgent for yourself in a way to make your life easier? Is that how it got started?
Exactly, because we were building a different kind of product. We were building a product called Clickable, which is basically an AI-driven ad generator, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, we would generate an image with diffusion models, and then we would generate like captions and ad copy with large language models. And we wrote so many lines of code to be able to perform this quite simple idea. The results were never as good as we wanted them to be. However, as soon as we shifted to the agentic model and leveraged the know-how embedded in the LLM, the results went through the roof, right?
Yeah.
It was a true paradigm shift.
Yeah,
and then
and
we
that
thought,
was that was like the basically the beginning of SuperAgent. So it was the backend for this AI assistant for marketing teams, basically. And so just over a week, I decided to try to formalize this, because if you could build a marketing assistant, like a co-pilot for a marketing team, what other cool stuff wouldn't you be able to build? And how cool would it be if that stuff could be ran in production, in a real app with real users using it, right? How cool wouldn't that be? So that basically became the embryo of SuperAgent. We decided to, open source it, because we believe in the open source model for building these type of frameworks and technologies. most of SuperAgent is basically built on open source technology. So we wanted to contribute, we wanted to create something that was super valuable for someone like Ryan, who is not like a machine learning engineer. So we
Right.
wanted to simplify, Ryan's life, and enable him to basically bring in AI agents into his application with as simple as like implementing Stripe for payments. Basically,
Awesome.
that's like the gist of it.
And when were you guys working on this project for the marketing? It sounds like you've been working on that for a while now.
More time than we'd like to admit. I think close to a year now.
But so
And
you
we've
did it before the AI hype was out there.
exactly, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So when ChatGPT launched, we already had like tens of thousands of signups. And then when ChatGPT dropped, like our traffic and our signups went through the roof. So this was before the hype. Um, so we spent a lot of time on it, and that's like, this just goes to prove like how powerful the agentic approach is, because we scrapped all of our code
Wow.
and replaced the whole thing with a number of agents that collaborate to bring the user customized ads, right? And if you think about it, it makes sense. That's how an ad agency works, right? If you remember that, like the series Mad Men
Yeah.
with Don Draper and those guys, that's how
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
work. You have a copywriter, you have the production, you have the art director. They need to collaborate in order to bring something to life. And that's how our agents work in Clickable, right?
So, what do you see as the biggest complication with your technology right now? Or what roadblocks do you see that you have to overcome?
I think tech-wise, there are two roadblocks. I think for AI in general. One of them is that if people are going to adopt this technology, let's say if a law firm is going to adopt some AI assistant or AI agent into their daily operations, the thing it needs to be is that it needs to always be 99.9% correct at all times. And so the inherent problem with AI or large language models in specific is that it's not always 99.9%. Sometimes I read some benchmarks some people have done. It was like 49%. So it was the hit rate is really, really low. So there are ways of bringing it to 99.9%, and that's the frameworks surrounding frameworks like SuperAgent or other frameworks out there that are surrounding and enhancing the output basically of the language model. So that's something that we need to work even harder on, and that's something that we are actively working on. So we are training our own algorithms basically to handle this on our side. And I think the second thing is that, when you write code the old way, you always have control over issues and bugs and stuff like this for the developers, for the tech team, basically. With AI agents, it's a bit hard to trace and actually see. It's rarely a software bug. It's an AI bug. It's a completely different type of bug that appears. It's not that the application breaks. It's more like the answer was incorrect. The LLM didn't answer correctly. So it's not a bug, but it's not the correct answer either. So that's really hard as well. That's something that needs, and these two go hand in hand, of course. So these need to be addressed, and I think there's a lot of interesting projects out there trying to address them.
Yeah. LLMs are by nature black boxed, right? And that creates a lot of usability issues, especially in like business critical contexts. There you need to have a lot of control, and you need to be perhaps adopt a different approach than like the zero shot approach, which is where everyone starts out, right? Just write a prompt and then hope for the best. That's how we use ChatGPT basically.
Right.
But in order for them to perform in the way we need them to perform, you actually need to step outside of the LLM, and you need to do a lot of stuff without getting into detail. You need to do a lot of stuff before, after, and like
In
around
between.
the LLM. Yeah. If
So you
I'm
you
trying
sort of
to,
want to are you sort of need to ask the LLM the right question is what you're saying, like.
you need to ask the right question, and oftentimes it's not enough with one question, right? Because one question might lead to 5 new questions, and then you need to answer those, right? So there's
Okay.
a back and forth reasoning that is happening, which is actually very interesting, because in a way that's how our brain works, right? It's very seldom that we just think a thought and then we act, and that's the end of it. Oftentimes you go back and forth and you have like subtasks, right?
Sure.
So we actually like we learn about ourselves a lot when working on problems like these, and this is kind of an unexplored territory, as Ismail mentioned, right?
Sure. So how, I mean, this is a black hole, but we'll start off here. What LLMs do you guys use right now for SuperAgent?
So SuperAgent supports hundreds of LLMs. It supports it supports the big ones, of
Okay.
course, like OpenAI, Claude, Llama, all of these big models, but it also supports whatever model that you publish open source, or if you publish it like on Hugging Face. So you can use whatever LLM you want. So we have people using specifically fine-tuned LLMs that they have trained on a certain corpus of data to do specific things. So we don't, we are a developer tool. It's up to the developers to decide what language models they want to power their agents with. We just give them the tools to do that in a, production ready and developer friendly way.
Okay. So like say if, we Hunter and I, we sort of, before we do these interviews, we don't like to research too much about the projects because we like to hear the answers from you guys.
Yeah.
So one of the things, like say if I'm a developer and I want to go download and play with SuperAgent, someone would go on GitHub, download the code, and then plug in what LLM they want to use at that point.
Actually, that's one way of doing it. Since it's
Okay.
open source, they can actually like spin up their own thing and run that. But we also have like a hosted cloud solution, so you can run SuperAgent by going to app.superagent.sh and log in, create an account, create your agents like in a nice user interface that we built for you, and then try them out. And if you're happy with them, you can integrate them into whatever application you're running, basically. So if for you guys, you do a lot of podcasts, you don't have time to research everything. So perfect use case for you guys would be to build a research agent. So what that agent would do would be to, go in, do all of the research for you for the project, highlight 5 things, and you just pick up on those 5 things, and you're ready to go. You don't even need to do the extensive research, and you can do that in SuperAgent in like 1 minute. So
Okay.
that's the power of it. And you could be a developer, you could even be someone like today I spoke to a designer that created agents for himself. So he doesn't know anything about code, but he can do it with SuperAgent and run it for his business. So we have law firms doing it, we have consultancy firms doing it, we have other technology companies using our platform, and we have designers. So it's a pretty broad scope of people, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's
what we
incredible.
have found is that it's oftentimes two different categories of people involved in these projects. First off, you have like the prompt engineer or the agent designer, whatever you might want to call them. And that's often someone in charge of a workflow, oftentimes a business person or a product owner of some sort, who understands the business requirements and goes in creates the agent, writes the prompts, etc., and then tests it out. And when it's okay, hands the agent and the agent's API endpoint, because the agent gets its own endpoint, right? So it can run from any app, and then hands it over to the developers. And the developer doesn't have to know anything about AI or LLMs or anything like that. The developer works with whatever app they're working on, right? And simply implements this. So that's how we envision the users using SuperAgent.
Okay, so right now there's the cloud-based solution and the sort of more the techie nerd developer code on GitHub. If someone went on you mentioned the designer, used SuperAgent. What does that flow look like in terms of if someone wants to go and use SuperAgent, they go to the website, and with for that designer example, what did they actually do on the website to get what they wanted done?
Yeah, so in this specific case, the designer had some documents like design guidelines, brand guidelines, and stuff that he wanted to basically answer, wanted to ask questions to those documents, get answers, and then act on those answers on behalf of his customers or users or whatever it might be in his daily work. Really, as a designer, he wanted to leverage that data. So what he does is he just logs in with his account. He basically goes into a configurator we have. He presses a button. He chooses what agent he wants. He chooses if it's should have access to the internet, if it should have access to documents, videos, images, whatever it might be, right? And so he just enables the access to whatever data basically he wants to use, and then he can just press a button and run that, and he gets a chat interface if he wants to. He can use it in a more technical way if he wants to later on, which he's planning to do. And so it's really simple for him. And that's basically our approach, is to build something for people that don't necessarily have the skill set to build this on their own.
Okay.
That's like the sweet spot for us.
Just to sum it up, to actually build an agent, there's no coding involved. That's the beauty of it, because the coding is already done. That's the whole idea. So you just click around in the user interface and you configure the agent by writing prompts. That's it.
Which is we interviewed Otto GPT last week, and they've got a ton of hype, and I think they've got more favorites on GitHub than like React and Node.js. And it's a great tool, but it's just a command line interface right now. It's crazy you guys talking about this, because people can go out there and use this right now, and they don't have to be developers, which is awesome. I feel like you guys are under an unknown project in a way.
That is
true
for you guys, right? That's the scoop.
Yeah, that's our job, Brian.
Yeah, and we collaborate with a lot of these hyped or not even non-hyped AI projects out there, because what happens in the end is, like, our users, some of them want to run, other type of frameworks such as Otto GPT or Baby AGI, two of the biggest, and they can do that on SuperAgent. So that's the cool part. We try to include everyone. Like, we don't discriminate any frameworks or any other type of agents. We don't have any real preferences on that. We only want to serve the users. So what does our users, what do they want to run? Do they want to run Baby AGI? We'll fix so you can run Baby AGI, basically. That's our approach to it. Okay. So that's pretty cool. So we can collaborate with anyone, basically. And we do a lot of collaborations.
So you guys seem to have a lot of different use cases. Do you guys do any data tracking, or do you know how many people are using SuperAgent, or what kind of interesting use cases you've seen for it so far?
Yeah, we do. Alan is the tracking king.
Or what's the most common one too that you see?
So our tracking at the moment is underdeveloped, but we have. That's why he's referring to me.
Oh, gotcha. It's never going to be perfect. So.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have over 1,000 users, active users on our cloud solution, and we have a lot more using our open source solution, self-hosted. And we have a bunch of different use cases. The common ones, because we're in the middle of the chat with your document trend, right? We see a lot of startups doing that. We have a lot of that. We have a lot of assistant type use cases as well. So, for example, you have an assistant where you load a bunch of know-how of some sort, could be like your knowledge base for your company. And you can also equip the agent with some kind of capabilities, like post to Slack or whatever it might be. That's a very common use case as well. Ismail, would you add any interesting use
Yeah,
case?
in the end, I've seen, like, because I speak to users every day. We have a Discord server that has around, I think, soon 400 developers in there, and they bombard me with a bunch of, like, ideas and prompts. I've seen some crazy prompts. I've seen some prompts. It doesn't even look like a language. It looks like, I don't know what it is. It's just emojis everywhere, And so I've seen it all out there. I've seen it all. I've seen the dirty
It's
side
more
of
efficient.
this business. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
token
But
saving.
what I
It's
would
just,
say is that the trend is that people, and I've thought about this myself, and that's why I love SuperAgent, because I'm a user myself. People want to replace themselves. That's the weirdest thing. People want to replace, all the tedious BS tasks that they do every day, and some of them are really important, but there's so many of them that you can't do everything perfect. So in that sense, it's perfect to just create your own personal bot. I've done it now, so I have like a super bot that I'm testing
super
out
Ismail.
on our. Yeah, exactly. And so
Nice.
what it does is, basically, if you have questions about how to, like, programmatically implement SuperAgent in your own app or something like that, you'll just ask it, and it just writes all of the code for you. You know, so you don't have to even write the code for it, and you can ask it anything, like, how do I do this, how do I do that, blah blah blah, and it just writes it. You copy paste it, and you're done. That's what people want to build, and that's pretty amazing, because regular individuals want to do it. I believe, smaller businesses want to do it, larger businesses want to do it. Like, everyone wants to do that. Even the housewife in the end will want to do that. So it would be pretty amazing to build something for that housewife in the end. Anybody can do whatever they like, replace themselves, which would be an amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, what are the limits to this? Is this just the human imagination, or what is there a specific limit where it's like, okay, it does these it creates these sort of agents very well, but there's these certain type that could be improved upon, or once we start stretching it to these purposes, it becomes difficult. Where are the limits with that?
So yeah, we had this discussion this morning actually, and because you have different kind of, you can design an agent using different kind of loops, we call them, and different kind of loops. For example, the React loop is one, plan and solve is another. They're good at different things. However, to answer your question, the limits are actually kind of unexplored, right? So there has been research on what types of tasks each loop is good at, right? This is quantifiable. There are different standardized tests that they put these agents through. For example, if you need something that is more, an agent that is more reasoning and can do something that is not sequentially planned in advance, perhaps you want a React, which is a reason and act loop that does that, because it can continuously, you know, take in its environment, think about what to do, etc. Large language models does that very well. But you might have other use cases that doesn't require that. And we had this discussion this morning, and it's very difficult because we are in the beginning of this, and the research is like very fresh, the articles that are coming out. So I don't think there is any kind of answer on what the limits are. That's the first part of my answer. The second part of my answer is, if you look at the scope, which we have discussed today, the scope we have discussed today is quite narrow, actually. Ismail mentioned basically a support version of himself, right? And he's got a ton of leverage from that agent, basically a customer support agent, right? And we see our users creating similar stuff, as mentioned. That's kind of low-hanging fruit. But if you look at the workforce out there, if you look at any like big company and you look at the average employee, what are they really doing and how high is that bar, right? It's not very high. So I don't think you need to reach the limits of what is possible with this kind of technology before you can create a ton of value. That's kind of the hypothesis we are working from. So we are very happy where we are right now when it comes to like output from these agents. And that tells you more, I think, about, what people actually are doing at large companies, for example.
Yeah. Well, I worked at like corporate America, for example. I worked at Sherwin-Williams. They're a paint company here in Cleveland. I probably shouldn't be calling this out, but they're the largest. I think they're one of the largest paint suppliers in the U.S. And I would say probably half the work that's being done there in the corporate office could probably be done by some kind of automated agent like SuperAgent. It's just the facts of the matter. So, and that's probably like that through a lot of corporate America.
Yeah, exactly. That's how large organizations tend to, and I don't think there's any danger singling anyone out because they're not the only ones. So that's kind of the hypothesis we are basically working from.
Now, is it completely free, or is it paid, or how does that work for the cloud version?
Yeah, so we are planning to charge for it, but we are not right now because we are in open beta. But we are planning on releasing a paid plan soon.
Gotcha. And can you guys talk about the tech stack, how you built this, what it's built with? I know this could probably be, you could probably talk about this one for hours, but if you can give us an insight to how this was built. You talked about a little bit the background of it, starting from a marketing clickable. But what are the tools you actually built the SuperAgent with?
So the actual tech stack, it's a pretty simple tech stack, actually. It's not something advanced. It's basically we write all our code in Python. So we use a framework for that called Fast API. Amazing framework. And what that does is that it basically creates an API that any developer can use to integrate into our app. And then we have, different type of frameworks that are open source that you can use. And like we use LangChain, which is a framework that is, blowing up. It was really the first big agentic framework for developers. And so we use that. We use Llama Index, which is another one. We use, a bunch of different type of tools to power our agents, such as like Zapier and other type of automation tools, web search, and all of that stuff. We have a pretty simple database that connects everything. That's run through a service provider called Supabase, who's like amazing. Has helped us out a lot. Amazing product. I love it, and also built open source partly. So that's great for us. And for the LLMs, basically, you can, we connect to Hugging Face, and we connect to a bunch of different third-party services like Notion, HubSpot. You can bring in whatever data you want or whatever language model you want into the system. So we have vector stores, databases, bunch of stuff, but really simple. And the front end is Next.js. It's deployed on Vercel. We are big fans of Vercel. I mean, we've been using them since, I don't know, we've used them forever, basically, before they even were this big, and always been fans of those guys as well. So it's a pretty simple stack, and we have a lot of contributors, which I want to give a big shout out to. They come and they help us out, open source, and develop our framework with all of the amazing contributors, and so we are really agnostic. We want to bring in what people want to run. And so we are pretty like nimble and fast, move fast, like and have simple code. That's like it. But everything is on GitHub, so I urge everyone to just go and take a look and try to run it yourselves and play around with it.
All right, awesome. And you got, just to be clear, are you both you two started the company as co-founders? Is there anyone else, or?
No.
Is it it's just you two and then pretty much contributors on GitHub or in Discord?
Yeah, it's the ninja army, we call them. They're like ninjas. They're our super agents,
Awesome.
So that's it.
You mentioned how people are using this a lot to replace themselves or replace these menial tasks, at least. Do you see this as a sort of maybe a risk of AI, or a direction that AI is going, where it's kind of like, in some ways, making life easier, but it's also eliminating that sort of autonomy in our lives that we're doing this sort of thing? Or do you look at it more as it's freeing people up to do more important tasks?
I can answer this one, perhaps. So Ismail framed it as replacing themselves. I wouldn't frame it like that. I would say that in Ismail's example, the Ismail agent that was the Super Ismail agent that was created is actually not replacing Ismail. It's actually allowing Ismail to get more leverage out of his time.
Cloned version.
Exactly. So it's basically a clone, so that Ismail can create more value elsewhere. And that, I think that our users see that, right? Because in the end, the agent, the super Ismail in this case, is dependent on Ismail, right? Because it feeds off of Ismail's know-how. And the same goes for the others. So I think this is a very philosophical discussion, I guess, but where we are right now, like the agents are very dependent on us humans for knowledge and for technology as well. Well, that will be over quite soon, I think, the latter one.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, for sure. So what's your direction for this project right now? What are the next steps that you're currently working on?
Yeah, we're working on a completely new version of SuperAgent that is going to make it much easier to create more complicated agents that can perform much more complex tasks, right? Because the agents today are quite simple if you compare them to, like our vision. So we have a vision of creating agents that can replace like 90% of all workflows in corporate America. That's kind of what we are gunning for, which is not a high bar at all, as we were discussing earlier. And that's what our next version aims to do.
That's maybe you guys are slowly going to take over Volvo. I mean, you're right by that, live right by them. You can take over that workforce there.
That's too easy. That's too easy. I have friends working there. They tell me the craziest things.
Yeah, most of our users are actually in the US. They're not from Sweden. I mean, Sweden is not really a big place, and it's really small, and there are some users, but all of them are basically US based. Some of them are even Chinese, I think. I mean, we have people
Okay.
from all over the world. But
No one
most
in Sweden knows what we do. We have friends and
no.
stuff. They never talk work with us. No, they don't know.
Interesting.
They don't understand what we do.
Yeah.
So
They
yeah,
think you
we've
just have
had a
some like made
global.
up company, and you're
Yeah,
really a
Yeah,
yeah.
trusted
exactly.
I
person.
mean, it's just not, it's not like San Francisco or anything where
Yeah,
tech people. It's not that vibe at all. It's an old, like, it's like an old industry city, worker city. It's a lot of beer and burgers. Not much,
okay.
AI in our city.
So do you, if you don't want to disclose this, that's fine. Are you guys looking to raise VC capital? Have you raised any money already, or are you sort of just self-funding this project?
We have not raised anything yet.
Okay,
Currently, we are self-funding this project, but our plan is to raise capital quite soon. So we are working on, we want to do our homework before we start raising. So that's what we are
sure.
working on diligently. We're working on the product. We are working on the right kind of user success cases. And then based off that, we want to do our first round.
So is it
Yeah, I
just you
think
guys working on the project right now, or do you guys have a team going on, or
It's the two of us, yeah,
just the two of you
in
right
the
now?
company, yeah. And then we have the contributors, of course.
Yeah. And how did you guys meet?
Yeah.
We met during our university days. This was a long time ago, 15 years ago. We ran a math club together.
Okay.
So that was the background. And we were helping kids out like in the suburbs over here. So there's like a segregation situation that's going on in Sweden and especially in our city. So basically, we wanted to do something good. We wanted to give back, right, to our favorite city. So we organized a student-run math club, and we engaged thousands of people in the end. And we managed to inspire and teach our favorite subject, which is math. So that's where we met, and we always vibed because it was quite clear that our ambitions were different than our peers in our math club. We always wanted to build companies, and we wanted to work on cool stuff, and we wanted to build like something big. We want something that could really have an impact. So we always had like different ideas, and then we went on to work. Like we got our first jobs, and that didn't last long. Right after a year or two, it was like, okay, this is not for us, and we just decided to start a company, and that's what we did, and we've worked together since.
Awesome. And are you guys doing this full time right now, or do you still have a job somewhere else, or is this your
No,
main
we're
job?
doing
No,
this full
it's
time.
full time, full time. So we had the luxury to build two companies previous to this one that were successful. So we have the luxury of being, working on this full time. And I have to say, like, we are two people, but I believe that future, if you look at the future and if you look how many of these tools that we use are open source, so I've never ran a team bigger than I have now. And it's because there's so many contributors that that's 30 developers basically contributing at a regular basis. It becomes like 30. They're not employees, but you still have to take care of them. You still
Sure.
have to review their code and do all of the stuff you do, but you don't pay them. That's the only difference. You pay them with access basically. So it's a quite large team, but we are the only founders. That's basically it. I mean,
Yeah,
the
this is
team
like
is
the open source business model. Like, how do you? So it's of course like legally it's separate. So the actual repository is its legally its own thing with its own license, etc. And then we need to create like a viable company on top of that somehow. right? That becomes the next step. And but now we are fully focused on the open source project because that's going to be the basis of whatever comes next, right?
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. Open source is awesome. Like to have, in your case, 30 developers, that would cost you millions of dollars, if it wasn't open source, to pay them if they were on your payroll. So that's awesome. You have a great team of contributors. You mentioned before that you're like Sweden doesn't have a big tech scene. How did you guys get into doing tech? I know it was through math, but are there other people like you in Sweden? And is there a city where there's a tech industry in Sweden, or is it
So
sort of
there is like
spread
a
out?
tech scene here.
Okay.
So we have like companies coming out of here, like Spotify is Swedish. So there is a huge interest, and we have like very good technical universities that produce a
Mhm.
lot of good people, but it's not comparable with like Silicon Valley.
Gotcha.
It
Yeah.
can't, like, it's a numbers game, right? So even
Yeah.
in the US, you need to move to Silicon Valley or one of your hubs. It's the same situation over here, right?
Okay.
So so that's kind of, but we are planning on like our long-term plan is to because if you want to grow this company, you have to take it to Silicon Valley. So that's basically our long-term plan.
Okay. Well, if you ever
So
come
we're
over
not.
here, we'll have to grab a beer or something.
Yeah,
That
we
would
would
be
love that.
amazing.
So yeah, we are not geographically bound. It's not like the old days, right? So we are
Yeah.
not like geographically bound here with like hundreds of employees, right? And it's quite in the early days still, so
Sure.
it's doable.
Cool.
That's kind of the way the world is moving, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you don't go to the office as much anymore, and I think that the pandemic had a lot to do with that, and now technology has a lot to do with that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. In our case, we need access to the right kind of people, right? So we will go wherever these people are, and they happen to exist in a couple of hotspots, but of course Silicon Valley is one of them. So that's the reason of why we would like incorporate the company in the future. This is like a tactical financing thing, I guess, but it's a lot of has a lot of to do with access to the right people. If you're starting an automotive business, I think this is a great place. It's a hotspot
Mhm.
for that. You have so many people you can recruit, right? But we are not in that business, right?
Right. So are your goal is to get to Silicon Valley one day and sort of build the business from there, from what you're
Yeah, that's
saying?
the dream.
All
That's the
right.
dream.
Yeah, man.
We should have done it long
Yeah.
time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
now's the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think as
Yeah,
long as you take care, as long as you keep building SuperAgent, you guys are on a great path. So for funding,
Yeah.
for growing the business, for everything.
Yeah, we
Thank
we
you so
believe
much.
Yeah.
we believe in that, in what we're doing, and we believe in the vision. And I mean, with the world, if anybody could deploy these AI tools for themselves, that would be like amazing for humanity, I think. So, small mundane tasks at volume, at scale is just something fantastic.
What do you
If
guys
these two
think? What do you guys think? Can you see a future where we don't have these type of agents running around in our virtual environment doing things for us? Can you see that kind of future?
Go. I'll let you answer first, Hunter.
At this point, no. After all the research that we've done, the people that we've talked to, even over the past few months, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, how well these things are going to develop, how fast they grow into a larger scale. People adopting them, I think, is going to be the biggest obstacle. I think the technology will get there far before the people will get there. And by people, I mean like the mass public. Because I think there's a lot of people who are reluctant to this sort of thing. They think that it's kind of scammy or techie or something like that, or they won't be able to understand it. But as soon as it becomes more applicable to people, easier to use, becomes more normal, I think that there's no doubt that this is going to be the direction that things go with AI.
I have a different take on that. I think it will be adopted long before people are comfortable with them. And the reason is profitability. right? Because we are in a situation right now which is very strange. First of all, we have this AI revolution that's going on. At the same time, we have a increase in capital costs, etc., interest rates going up, etc. Companies being more and more squeezed to perform well in terms of profit, right? But what's the easiest way to increase profitability? Get rid of people, right? And replace them with something else, software, agents, etc. So I think this bottom line driven adoption is going to come from, top down, private equity firms, etc. That's going to be like the early adopters of corporate America. And
I think that's a good point. We already see that happening too. We're seeing that happening all the time. I mean, if you look at like the whole Netflix news that just came out yesterday, we're talking about they're hiring, directors for AI. That in they're paying them almost $1 million. Their actors and writers are only getting paid like $30,000 a year.
Yep.
They're willing to invest so much into this AI because they know in the long term that's the best way that they're going to end up, making money and cutting costs and increasing quality as well.
There you go. So they've already, the movie industry, for example, they've already started to deploy agents. Basically, that's what you're saying. So they replaced the actors with agents, so to speak.
Yep.
How many movies are on Netflix? Do you know that? Like what's the total number of movies on Netflix?
That's a great question. I don't know.
I'll find out.
Let's say, what do you think, Alan? You're the engineer here. What math would you apply to just give a benchmark?
I have a friend who have seen all of them. That's what I can tell you. No, I'm not sure how many. It's different from different countries, right?
Yeah.
But if you get all of it, all countries, everything, movies, and I mean video. How much video do they have?
How much video do they have? That's a different question.
Yeah. Because if you think about they would take a model and they're just trained.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT.
There we go.
And if they would want to create writers, they could do that. I'm 100% sure they could do that with a they could replace writers. That wouldn't be a big issue for them technology wise. That's like 2 years away.
Right.
1 year away.
And why wouldn't you? If you like the whole, for a company like Netflix that is listed on the stock exchange in the US, they have an obligation to their stockholders to make the most profit they can. Like that's one of their defining things. So if you have to fire people and do something with AI, it's sort of like you have to do it because you have to look out for the stockholders. Another thing that's kind of interesting is for our email, we get like responses to our email all the time, or on Twitter as well. I've got a Twitter account for our email newsletter, and a lot of times people they just crap on AI. They hate it so much. But a few times, like the same person that hates AI will ask, like, "Hey, how can I use this in my business?" Like the guy yesterday, he's a chiropractor, and he wanted to know how to use AI in his business to make it more profitable. So I guess my point is, like, you can hate AI and be afraid of it as much as you want. But as soon as someone shows you a tool that can make your business more profitable, I think that's going to change a lot of people's minds really fast because that's the bottom line, especially if you have a family business.
That's exactly my point as well. Like the bottom line driven adoption is going to come long before people are comfortable with it. And that's actually could be a problem, right? If people don't really think about the ethical concerns, etc., and just go for profit, that could cause other issues, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, according to my manual imitation of an capable agent, I have calculated that we have 20,000 hours of video content. 2021 years numbers. Sounds kind of low.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there you go. There you go.
Yeah, they
GG.
could. Yeah, they could reproduce that number of hours in, every day, right? If they just generated with AI. Yeah.
I was watching. I don't. This came out like a couple of years ago. Have you guys ever seen that deep fake of Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible how real it looks. So
Yeah.
And that's
it's
old,
like
right?
if they can do a deep fake of Tom Cruise, they can just make deep fakes of whoever they want to act in any movie they want. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Voice, usually voice is decoupled from the movement of the movie, right? They sample the voice up after and do a bunch of that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Voice, you can replicate voice one to one. I mean, you won't notice that's already done. There are commercial models. I can go take some of your videos and replicate your voice 100% today in like 5 minutes.
yeah, it's scary. Yeah,
But the
So
next step
that's
is
already so.
the next step is they're going to generate their own movie stars. They
right.
don't need Tom Cruise, right?
That's true.
Yeah, they will make their own Tom Cruise, which they own all the rights to, and they make them super popular. They own the brand, they own everything.
Jesus, that sounds
No, but that's the
messed
natural
up.
next step. It's like a
Yeah, I think you're right.
verticalization, right? You own the whole
Yeah.
value chain. You own
Yeah.
the streamer, you own the tech to stream, you own the tech to produce the movies, and you own all the intellectual assets for like the actors, because you created the actors, right?
Yeah. So the
So-
actors, like the actors, are keep saying like, "What about our rights?" But I think it's like with any technology, right? They're going to get pushed out at some point, and they have to
Yep.
embrace AI or do something, because I think a lot of their jobs are going to be threatened. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, this happens all the time in all kinds of industries, and I don't think like actors have any kind of special rights to keep their jobs. However, there might be societal impacts. I don't think from movie stars going out of business, but the famous example is like if all truckers go out of business or are replaced, that's going to have like societal impact, because you will have a lot of unemployed male, certain demographic that can cause a lot of political ruckus, right? And then you'll have to invent other ways of solving that. For example, taxation, universal basic income, etc., etc. And I think that discussion is due, to say the least, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be however it plays out. It's going to be fascinating over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years to see what happens. Because nobody knows, but it's going to be a crazy ride. It feels like.
Yeah. No one is safe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, well,
we are. Yeah,
Yeah.
we are the ones that's gonna be replaced first. I think so. Me and Alan, they'll
I am
replace
already
us.
replaced.
We'll replace ours.
I was
You're gonna
replaced
replace
before
yourself.
AI came. I was replaced.
Your super
Alan replaced it.
Ismail is going to take over Ismail.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be amazing though.
So what is your Discord that people could go to?
So
If they
it's
wanted to
called
chat.
SuperAgent. I can send you the link to the Discord if you want to post it together with a video.
Sure.
But it's basically SuperAgent, and you can just go in there and join. And the links are on our webpage as well, SuperAgent.sh, and you can check us out on GitHub as well. So you have all the links to everything there, and you can try it out, run it, do stuff with it, replace yourself or whatever. That's basically it.
One thing we want to ask from your viewers and or your readers, we want to hear about the kind of things they want to do with agents, the kind of ideas they have for their life and for their business. So the chiropractor you told us about earlier, that's awesome. That's what gets us going, right? We want to hear all of these quirky things, quirky ideas, because that's in the end, that's how we're going to help people. So please check out our Discord, post any kind of ideas or questions you might have. We are very happy to answer them.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'd love to hear these ideas. I mean, I'm intrigued by it to hear. I always love to hear the crazy ideas personally, the whacked out ones that I wouldn't think about. Those are always
That's how it starts, right?
Yep. Yeah, and that's how you said that's a great way to test the limits and continue to improve the project for sure.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
But yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We'll probably maybe we'll do a follow up podcast in a little later. But thanks so much for coming out and
yeah, thanks
joining
for
us
coming
today.
on.
Yeah.
And then yeah, for any of the viewers, or Ryan and I's newsletter is fry-ai.com. We provide weekly or weekday news, and then along with some tools and different stories and updates in a fun way and an easy to read way. The Fry AI, the fry is just for fun because Ryan's daughter likes French fries. So that's how we got the fry.
We dig it.
Yeah, so we do that. And then on Sundays, we do the deep dive articles. So we'll be doing one here on Super Agent along with the video follow up. So be sure to check them out, Discord and their project. It is SuperAgent.sh. All right, we appreciate you guys coming on, and it was just really nice talking to you guys, and we definitely learned a lot. We're excited about your project.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. We really enjoyed it.
All right, thanks
Have
a lot,
nice one.
guys. Awesome project.
Bye.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
care.
Bye.